Hello and welcome to China Shortcuts,
the European Chamber's weekly catch-up on China's business landscape.
This episode was recorded on 22nd April 2026. China recorded a GDP growth rate of 5% year-on-year in Q1 2026, up 0.5 percentage points relative to its Q4 2025 performance.
The tertiary sector, which includes the service industry, expanded by 5.2% year-on-year during the January to March period, while the primary and secondary sectors grew at 3.8% and 4.9% respectively. China's Q1 growth rate is so far in line with the country's formal target of achieving GDP growth of 4.5 to 5%, while striving for better in practice, as outlined in the Chinese Premier Li Qiang's report on work of the government released at this year's two sessions.
It is also consistent with the 15th Five-Year Plan, which details the country's intention to support the development of frontier technologies over the next 5 years. In this regard, investment in high-tech industries grew by 7.4% during the first 3 months of the year, significantly outpacing overall investment growth, which increased by 1.7%.
During Q1 to 2026, imports to China grew relatively faster than exports from the country to the rest of the world. The former increased by 19.6% and the latter by 11.9% compared to Q1 2025's level, a positive sign given that the trade imbalances have been a persistent source of concern for many of China's trading partners, including the EU. Despite this development, China still ran a trade surplus of 1,855 billion yuan in Q1 2026 with the rest of the world.
In March 2026, production at larger industrial firms in China, with an annual income of over 20 million Chinese yuan, grew by 5.7% year-on-year, down slightly from 6.3% in February 2026.
Production growth in the manufacturing industry was particularly strong, coming in at 6% year-on-year, with the mining and utilities industries recording 5.7% and 3.5% growth respectively. 30 out of 41 major industries surveyed recorded increases in production in March. The largest growth was registered in the railway, shipbuilding, aerospace, and other transportation equipment manufacturing sector, at 13.3% year-on-year. New energy vehicle production recorded a 1.2% year-on-year increase, after production had fallen by 13.7% in February 2026.
Total retail sales of consumer goods in China grew by 1.7% year-on-year in March, a slowdown relative to the 2.8% growth rate seen in the month prior.
Excluding weak automobile sales, which were down 11.8%, retail sales of consumer goods grew at a healthier 3.6%. Online retail sales of goods and services continued to outpace sales growth in physical stores, with the former accounting for a quarter of all retail sales of consumer goods in China.
On 21st April, China's State Council issued the opinions on promoting the expansion and quality improvement of the service industry, which calls for the country's service industry to be further developed in order to support China's industrial upgrading, meeting people's livelihood needs and driving employment expansion.
The document calls for increased policy support for incubators for emerging industries and future industries, for China to improve its inspection, testing, and certification capacities, benchmarking them against international standards, and for China to improve its ability to respond to foreign-related intellectual property risks. In the artificial intelligence domain, the opinions outline plans for the implementation of China's AI Plus initiative, which aims to have at least 70% AI-enabled terminals and agents in key industries by 2027.
The opinions also called for further opening up in the service industry, including via the expansion of pilot initiative relating to value-added telecommunications services, biotechnology, and wholly foreign-owned hospitals. However, despite these positive signals, businesses will be waiting to see tangible improvements before committing to larger-scale investments.
On 15th of April, the European Chamber released a statement on the regulations on countering improper extraterritorial jurisdiction by foreign states, which was published by the State Council on 13th of April.
While the regulations' stated aim is to serve as defensive instrument for China to protect its interests from extraterritorial provisions enacted by foreign states, they contain several provisions that may impact businesses. This includes a provision that places liability on any organization or individual that implements or assists in the implementation of improper extraterritorial measures by a foreign state, thereby infringing upon the lawful rights and interests of Chinese citizens or organizations.
The decree shares a limited degree of similarity with the EU's blocking statute, which also aims to counteract third country extraterritorial measures. However, its broader scope and contains vague language, potentially giving Chinese officials wider discretion to punish companies and individuals, including through criminal liability.
The regulations also affirm China's ability to use extraterritorial provisions itself when deemed necessary. This is concerning given that Chinese extraterritorial export controls, which were originally announced in October 2025 and subsequently suspended, are set to come into force in November this year.
To read more about China's evolving export control rules and regulations, check the Chamber's latest publication, Exporting Control, China's Strategic Toolkit, which was published earlier this month. A link can be found in the episode notes.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in again next week.
In the meantime, please find useful links in the episode notes.